We hopefully have solved our technical problems yesterday, and now we'll have high-quality sound and no interruptions. Just to make a couple of announcements, if you are requesting a consult, you can send an email in and get a quick protocol if you are or are not a customer, but in order for you to get an advanced consult or access to the live stream channel and our wellness conditions and for consults, you need to have a membership at NUTRIMEDICAL.com, or NUTRIMEDICAL membership. Let's start with Michael Connolly, U.S. Justice Foundation. That's usjf.net. And you have your blog, which is, I'd like you to repeat it for us, Michael, so that people can get it if you want to do it slowly.
It's Michael Connolly, CONNELLY, .jigsy.com.
Very good. Now, the issues that are going on right now, number one, we have this treaty that Obama is trying to push through with Iran. We have the veterans being persecuted and their Second Amendment rights being taken away for frivolous reasons, no reasons at all. And we've got situations going on worldwide in terms of the literally explosion of the Mideast with Yemen now being attacked by the Saudi Arabian Air Force, and the blockade in the Red Sea. We have Iran basically on notice. We have, of course, I watched a 60 Minutes program last night from the weekend with Bashar al-Assad, and his answers were very succinct and very straightforward in terms of the fact that America is, in a sense, allied with Iran and therefore allied with Syria in trying to defeat ISIS, which, by the way, the United States and Israel created. And we have the situation now where we've created a crisis. We often do this. And then we kind of, when it gets out of control, we have to make alliances with others. And by the way, Iran is not threatening terrorism to American cities. There's not one situation where an Iranian terrorist anywhere in the world has ever done anything to any U.S. citizen. It's always Sunni Muslim terrorists, period. Sunni Muslim terrorists, Wahhabists. And this is the exact words of Bashar al-Assad. It's very straightforward. If you live in the Middle East, you know exactly how dangerous Wahhabism is. And then we have other issues going on. The impeachment of Obama has not proceeded because of Mr. Boehner. He's an obstruction to the truth. And we don't see any revisions to fix Obamacare, which is still a mess. 7.1, they estimate to 8.3 million people got insurance or coverage or some kind of subsidies. It's now in the Supreme Court. Who knows where that's going to go, but it really hasn't fixed the problem. It's actually compounded because many people lost their insurance. The top issue there, of course, is veterans, and then we have to deal with the war issue. Michael, let's go through your analysis in your blog on what's going on in these issues.
Well, I've been talking a lot about the aid and comfort. I wrote a blog article on aid and comfort to the enemy, and basically that's what, when you talk about the Middle East and the foreign policy and all this, we have no foreign policy in the Middle East except surrender. And Obama's preparing to surrender to the Iranians. In fact, there's not going to be a deal today. He's going to kick the can down the road again for another couple of months, and then there's no deal then. He'll kick it down the road. In the meantime, the Iranians are enriching uranium for nuclear weapons. They can be used to develop nuclear weapons. They're in a position of getting their hands on ICBMs that can deliver those weapons as far away as the coast of the United States. And the president is intent on getting some kind of deal, even if he has to basically give away our security in this country, in order to cement his legacy, so-called. And he knows that right now the vast majority of the members of Congress, so that's both Republican and Democrat, oppose the idea of letting Iran have a deal that is, number one, unenforceable, because there'll be no safeguards there, and number two, it allows them to get nuclear weapons. And so he's planning, as I understand it, to bypass the Constitution once again, which is something he does on a daily basis, to bypass Congress, and rather than follow the Constitution and submit any treaty he makes with Iran to the Senate for a two-thirds vote to ratify it, he is going to go to the United Nations and ask them to release sanctions on Iran. He's going to go to the United Nations and ask them to ratify a treaty between the United States and another country, which is basically surrendering our sovereignty to the United Nations. Which is,
well, he's done that before with Libya. He did that before with Libya when they went into Libya and destroyed that country. And now it's tribal warfare in the country continuously.
Yeah, and the White House continues to say that the reason he has not submitted the UN Small Arms Treaty to the Senate for ratification is well, number one, he knows that it'll be defeated. They'll never get 2/3 of the Senate. They won't even get a majority to ratify this thing. But he is saying that he can enforce the treaty without it being ratified, and that the Constitution, therefore, would require 2/3 of the Senate to vote to block him. That's exactly the opposite of what the Constitution says. Wow. But he says he's going to enforce that treaty, and one of the things that he and Kerry both lied about when they signed the treaty was that it does require the registration of all firearms in the United States. All owners of firearms have to be registered with the federal government, and that information is then turned over to the United Nations. Now, how's Obama going to do this? Well, he's bypassing Congress. Congress will never vote to do that, and there's a law out there that specifically prohibits federal funds from being used for a national firearms registry. Obama is saying that he can do it, just ignore that law entirely, and what they're doing right now is if you go and apply to purchase a firearm legally, through a gun store or through a Walmart or whatever, and you have to fill out that form, a federal form, and that form is supposed to be destroyed within 48 hours by the owner of the retail outlet where you purchase a firearm, and the FBI that looks at the form to approve or disapprove your purchase is supposed to not keep any record of that electronic transmission at all. They're supposed to destroy any forms. That's not being done. That hasn't been done since Obama took office. They are gathering those forms up. I can guarantee it. They right now have a national gun registry. They're getting information from the states. If some states are cooperating in this, if you have a permit to carry a concealed weapon, they're giving that information to the federal government. All of that is being turned over to the United Nations. So we have a rogue president out there who is going after our firearms. He's making treaties with other nations that are dangerous to the United States, and he needs to be impeached. I've drawn up the formal articles of impeachment. People can go to my blog and read those. I drew them up. We submitted them to Congress. At least one or two members of Congress have submitted it to the House Judiciary Committee, but nothing is happening. Part of that is because John Boehner doesn't want it to happen. Part of that is because some of the Republicans are scared to death of being called racist if they go after Obama and try to impeach him. But the bottom line is this is a lawless administration who is destroying our Constitution, and we can't just sit back and let him continue to do that. Something's got to be done.
Yeah, exactly. And on every front, he is being remarkably successful at deconstructing, destroying America, and destroying the separation of the three arms of power, which is the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. And, of course, he's making us subservient to the United Nations, which basically, to me, is just an observer body. The UN has no power either to make or break treaties with the United States or to enforce them. And, of course, what Obama would probably try to do next is he would then dedicate American armed forces to be under the United Nations control.
Yeah, he's perfectly capable of doing that. He's perfectly capable of using forces the United Nations provides from other countries to try to enforce gun control in this country. I think that would precipitate a civil war, but I think that's what he wants, ultimately. He wants...
it seems to be, because when you take away 223 ammunition, I think, for example, for the condos here in California, you don't want to have lead ammunition hitting your food anyway because it blasts into little pieces, get copper. But you don't take away ammunition from the public. That is what I call a war drum start beating. And all it does is increase gun and munition sales, and people start making their own bullets and say, look, they realize this is no longer conspiracy theory, that we have a predatory governments determined to take away the rights of sovereign citizens and turn them into subjects. Not good. Especially veterans coming back, and we'll talk about that when we come back, and what's happening with the Middle East on fire right now, and those Sunni-Shiite war heating up, especially with ISIS in the middle, which we created along with the state of It's a Real Hell, and Blackwater Security, and now it's getting out of control. We'll be back in a minute with Michael Conley.
Have you ever felt like the United States government...
And welcome back, and we have a number of other issues that are cooking here. The position that we're taking with Russia, we negotiate from a position of either strength, no strength, or a negotiating position of we're going to try to bully our allies of Europe into not even having any kind of dialogue with Russia, which is actually pushing us toward a war situation where Russia says, well, they'll just re-exert their authority over all our satellite countries. On the one hand, and on the other hand, even the latest comment a few weeks ago that Germany should have asked Russia for East Germany to secede and to go back and join West Germany. Angela Merkel herself was actually raised in East Germany and speaks a fluent Russian because of that, and she has on her desk, we talked about this yesterday, she has on her desk a small statuette of Catherine the Great, who's actually German, who measured into the Tsar family, and after her crazy husband, who was the Tsar at the time, was taken out, one way or the other, she was the one who actually, and her Russian forces, conquered the Crimea. So people don't understand the real history of what's going on here, that Obama basically never operates from a position of strength, whether it's either dealing with ISIS, where, in a sense, we're supporting the Israelis to bomb Iran, but on the other hand, we're threatening them that we're going to shoot them out of the air if they do it. We're supporting ISIS and even still doing airdrops to the ISIS troops, supplying with equipment, satellite phones, and training in a town north of Amman, Jordan. And on the other hand, we're saying that we're not going to do anything to stop the slaughter of Christians in Syria. We're on both sides of this. It's crazy. And now we're, in a sense, allied with Iran doing airstrikes against ISIS because they know that this is getting out of control. We started this mess, and now it's getting completely out of control. It's an autonomous Muslim movement now where our control of it is becoming less and less, and it's rising up in Boko Haram and Africa and other, if you want to call Al-Qaeda-like or Al-Qaeda Wahhabist enclaves all over the world. It's going to really get to be a mess, and it'll come home here soon. I expect a major terrorist activity against the U.S. city sometime in the next 6 months. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we can expect a lot of terrorist activity in the next 6 months, and we're set up for it. Obama has set us up. Again, he took unconstitutional actions when he violated the Constitution, and because the Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution specifically gives the power over naturalization and immigration to the Congress. Nowhere in the Constitution does the President have any authority to do anything alone on immigration. Yet he decided in Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution requires the President to enforce the laws passed by Congress. Obama decided to destroy that part of the Constitution completely by ignoring the laws passed by Congress and not enforcing them, and then turning around and granting amnesty to millions of people who had broken our laws already and were here illegally. Then he opens up our border entirely. I live in Texas. I talk to people on the border. I've talked to Texas militia that have been down on the border, acting in support of the National Guard and trying to support the Border Patrol. I've heard from sheriffs on the border, and they all say, the Border Patrol agents that come out all say the same thing. We have no control over our southern border. Agents are not even allowed to arrest most people or detain them. In fact, agents have specifically been told, and these are Border Patrol agents, that they cannot interfere with groups of more than 20. Now, that makes absolutely no sense. You got a group of 30 terrorists coming across the border, and our agents, they don't know if they're terrorists unless they apprehend them and question them, and then even then they may not know, but they can't even apprehend them. So we've given ISIS, we've given Al-Qaeda, we've given the drug cartels carte blanche to come into Texas, to come into Arizona, Southern California, New Mexico, whenever they want to. We have known gang members coming across the border. I mean, they're wearing the gang tattoos on their faces and on their arms. They brag about committing murders in their home countries, like Guatemala, El Salvador. And the President of the United States has specifically ordered that these people not be detained, that they not be sent back to their country of origin, that they be given a bus ticket or a plane ticket and go to wherever they want in this country where they can join their gangs. So, yeah, we have a
criminal in the White House is what we have. We have a globalist functionary here trying to dismantle the borders, dismantle the culture, destroy the nation. I mean, it really is in the last 2 years, for example, there's over 330,000 Muslims that have been brought into this country. Some of them on the idea that they can use the anchor baby philosophy, which I think is insane. And many of them actually brought over here with so-called humanitarian reasons, because we've created this in these Muslim countries, and they've come over here, and they're members of terrorist group. We have 47 using military armaments, civil detention, civil training camps for these militia groups from the Muslims in the lower 48 states. I mean, 37 training camps. That's pretty serious. And what we have is a situation where the people in the White House are basically not acting in the interest of Americans or even the world. They're acting in the interest of a global clique that wants to control the world financial system, and they're willing to start war for it or destroy the nation of America to make certain that we won't resist it. It's pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's going to get a lot worse. I mean, like I said, the southern border, I've talked to some militiamen down there, and who've been down there. They've been down there for several years off and on. And they said that 2 years ago, before Obama started a lot of this stuff to let people come in, they were only apprehending, they figured there were 60% of the people that they were apprehending were not Mexicans. They are OTMs, other than Mexican. Some were from Central America, but many of them were from the Middle East and Africa. And we're talking about countries like Yemen and Syria and Iraq and Iran and places that Somalia, places that ferment terrorism or have terrorists operating within their countries. These people were coming in, and they estimate that they were only getting 1 out of every 10 of them. Now, that was 2 years ago. Now these guys are telling me that they're getting 1 out of every 100. So
imagine how many of these. Yeah, go ahead.
That tells us that we've got terrorists in this country. We know that in El Paso, Texas, there are probably several ISIS cells. We know for a fact that there are ISIS cells in Juarez, Mexico, right across the Rio Grande River from El Paso. We don't know where some other cells may be. At one point, a couple of years ago, they pinpointed a cell of Al-Qaeda in Houston, Texas, but before they could apprehend anybody, they disappeared. So we don't know where they've gone, or what part of the country they may be in. TSA allows people to board airplanes. Now, you and I, Bill, we have to have a picture ID before we can board an airplane. Yet, illegals come are being given what's called a notice to appear. And you can pull this off of the Internet. You can pull it off and print it out yourself and forge the signature of a judge or a TSA agent or a Border Patrol agent. Notice to appear in court. That entitles them to get on an airplane without any other ID and go anywhere they want in the country.
That's insane. I mean, if anybody told you this in the previous administration, say 50 or 100 years ago, they'd say the president would be impeached and or worse.
This alert just came in. This special announcement is for business owners and leaders of organizations.
Well, Michael, we have a couple of sources where people going to get information and action steps. The U.S. Justice Foundation is usjf.net. And, of course, your website is Michael Connelly, Connelly. I think it's .jigsy.com. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jigsy.com.
usjf.net and looking at the About Michael Connelly Executive Director section, and they'll find a direct link to my blog.
Excellent. Well, that makes it even easier. People need to take action quickly. I see Obamacare destroying medicine from the inside. And yes, there's some bad things in medicine. There are also good things. I mean, some of the things about American medicine, people were, for many years, coming to America from all over the world for innovative medicine, for advanced medicine. And yes, there's some bad things like the overuse of pharmaceuticals, which is, again, similar to the banking problems, where we have a small clique of people that are trying to force it by controlling the medical schools, the residency programs, and the state licensing authorities, or direct corrupt links. But on the other hand, what we have is a system where I think healthcare should be, where you don't have insurance, you just have to prove you're an American citizen, where the doctors are paid an hourly wage based on the years' experience and training. You don't talk about socialized medicine or data gathering. You don't have Health and Human Services wanting to know fee codes and diagnostic codes. It's none of their business. It's between the patient and the doctor. I have see a system where Obama and the functionaries asked a giant panel of attorneys as well as the big insurance carriers and drug companies to write the laws for Obamacare, it basically is another cash cow. And of course, that cash cow feeds into the Democratic Party to get more control, to make a larger, more dependent population. And that's not even working. Obamacare has only made insurance for 7.1 to 8.3 million people, and has made people lose insurance that are in their middle or older years, that are steady full-time employees and have lost that because they can't get it, their employer can't afford to get them insurance under these new rules. We have that issue. We've got so many issues under Obama. And this last year and a half, he's also even talking about partitioning the state of Israel and setting up a Palestinian state and setting up a new capital where they split the city of Jerusalem. And he's going to try to do this for the United Nations because, remember, he really is a UN world globalist proxy. He's not really our president at all. We have to recognize that. Now, well into the second term, he is not operating in the interests of black Americans or people of color. He's not operating in the general interest of all Americans. He's certainly not operating in the interest with his corrupt people that are taking away the rights of veterans. What's that situation now? How far along is that?
Well, if you want to see socialized medicine at its worst, and you want to see what will eventually happen with Obamacare, just go to the VA. Veterans right now are being forced to take drugs that they do not want to take. They're being forced to accept diagnosis of mental illness when they're not mentally ill. They're being told that if they don't accept these diagnoses, if they don't take the debilitating drugs, that they are going to lose their benefits, or they won't get the maximum benefits that they're entitled to. This is happening to veterans all over the country. We started out dealing with the Second Amendment issue because veterans are getting these letters from the VA basically telling them that because of your physical or mental disabilities, we're going to declare you incompetent to handle your own financial affairs. And once we do that, you can no longer own, possess, transport, or purchase firearms or ammunition. If you do, you're guilty of a felony. The VA gives no due process here. The burden of proof is in on the veteran to prove that they are competent to handle their own financial affairs. But here's how the VA is doing incompetence. According to the law, in order to be put on the NICS list, this National Instant Criminal Background Check list, you have to be a convicted felon, a known drug abuser, or adjudicated to be mentally ill to the point of being a danger to yourself or others. The VA is using that portion of the law, mentally ill to the point of being a danger to yourself or others, to put veterans on the list, the NICS list. And what they're classifying as being mentally ill, first of all, there's no adjudication process. Adjudication implies that there be a hearing in front of a judge, or at least an administrative judge. And Obama and Eric Holder decided right after they took office that adjudication would mean that anybody who worked for the federal government, even as an independent contractor, can declare a veteran to be incompetent. So they're using minor PTSD. PTSD is not even classified as a mental illness. They're using the fact that somebody may have been depressed at some time, even if it was for a short period and there was no treatment. They are classifying veterans as incompetent because they let their spouses pay the family bills. They are classifying, and I met with a veteran the other day, and there was a member of the state veterans group here, that we talked about this veteran. He was declared incompetent because he has all of his bills paid automatically by the bank every month. It's an automated system. That is the reason he was declared incompetent. He has filed an appeal, but the problem is there that veterans are being told that if they do exercise, first of all, they have to wait to be declared incompetent before they can actually appeal. Then they're told that it may take up to 2 years for the appeal to be heard, and during that time, their benefits will be suspended. So they'll be receiving no money. Now, this is happening when I wrote about this a couple years ago and broke this story, there were 159,000 veterans on the NICS list. Now, we estimate there are 200,000. We're representing veterans on an individual basis. We're not charging them anything. The United States Justice Foundation is doing all this at no charge. We're trying to raise the money independently to file a major lawsuit on behalf of veterans. In the meantime, we're working with them individually on some of their cases, and we're representing veterans all over the country at this point, stretching our resources very thin. But this is for me, because I am a veteran. I've got 2 sons that are currently in the military. My father was a veteran of World War II. In fact, I've written a best-selling book about his unit called the Mortarman, and it's on Amazon and ebook, and it's on Barnes and Noble, and sells about 750 copies a month. And so this is important to me, and this is important to the United States Justice Foundation. If people want to contribute to help us in this fight and other fights, because right now, let me tell you some of the other stuff with the United States Justice Foundation. We are representing Justice Roy Moore in Alabama, who is being sued by the gay groups because he dared to oppose the court order that said that they had to enforce gay marriage.
Well, the same thing is going on in Indiana with the legislators there clarifying religious freedom law. And, of course, the Defense of Marriage Act is not being defended by either Eric Holder or, of course, we know the new candidate they're planning is not only pro-abortion but pro what I call some pretty horrendous viewpoints. The new candidate for the Attorney General. It's one nightmare after another with this government. It really is a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. It's going to continue. But we're going to be representing Justice Roy Moore in the civil litigation, and we are representing. We are filing briefs on Obamacare, on some of the cases involved there. We're doing a lot of Second Amendment work, not just for the veterans, because see what's happened is they've been so successful in attacking the veterans and disarming our veterans that they are now expanding through new rules and regulations, not laws passed by Congress, but rules and regulations adopted by HHS, by BATF, and by other agencies that are going to broaden the definition of mental illness to include anybody who has ever seen a psychiatrist for any reason whatsoever, anybody who's taken certain drugs, so say for ADD or ADHD as a child, you're going to be declared mentally ill to the point of being a danger to yourself or others, and you're going to be denied the right to own a firearm. So this is a concerted effort to disarm the American people, but they're starting with the veterans because there's 23 million of us. We all took the same oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We believe in that oath, and we're trained to fight. We're trained to use firearms. We know how to fight, and they have to disarm us, just like Hitler did in Nazi Germany. That was one of the first things he did, was start disarming the German population, beginning with the veterans.
It won't work here, though. That's the point. What Obama's doing is going to lead, if it continues, to a civil war. Period.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
You know, when the legislative box and the witness box are no longer honored, the only thing left is the cartridge box. Unfortunately.
Exactly.
Okay. I guess we're live. I didn't hit the bumper. The situation, too, is interesting. I was looking at some other news. Germanwings aircraft situation with the crash landing, actually autopilot set by the Andreas Lubitz, the Germanwings co-pilot. The first question is, number one, the aircraft should have been taken over by autopilot, by electronic remote guidance, which are in all aircraft, including the Boeing Aerospace made in America and the Airbuses in Europe. And number two, this man was put on probably drugs I call kill-you-jack drugs, like Prozac, which, by the way, when you give our veterans, they come back home and they kill themselves and their family because it de-represses them. In fact, if you give these drugs to even shrimp, they'll actually literally swim right to the mouth of their predator. So it de-represses suicidal tendencies and makes them much more likely to just complete them. And the third thing is, why do they have it set up so they couldn't get in? Why did this happen to have in such perfect timing around the time when Germany is being vacillating back and forth about allying with Russia? Because they know that they don't want to go through a third world war with Russia, because that's what's coming. What I see happening is, on the world stage, we've got the Middle East blowing up. It's already at war. The reports are now that Yemen is falling. It's a pretty weak country anyway, but it's being bombed to death by Saudi Arabia. Iran is now in total alliance with America, calling in even bombing runs to try to stop ISIS. And the city of Mosul, which is a big city, it's 1.5 million people, has been taken over. Many Christians in northern Syria have been beheaded, starved, and young girls raped. And all at the behest of this Obama, who even a year ago was confronted at the White House, that someone said, well, the only Mideast leader that's stopping the slaughter of Christians is Bashar al-Assad. And Obama said, well, that's beside the matter. We have to do regime change. They have an agenda. That agenda is obviously changing now. Now they have to be allied with Iran. What I see happening is all this is tied to world financial situations, and they're trying to strong-arm Russia. It's now dumping the dollar. The petrodollar, of course, because we've been allied with Iran, is now being killed by Saudi Arabia. It's on purpose, by the way. And people need to know that. and Saudi Arabia is not checking with our government, so there's no collaboration with the American Saudi government, what they're doing in Yemen. And they have a lot of very advanced aircraft and weapons that we gave them. What I see happening is proliferation of nuclear weapons in the Middle East, and the place becoming a tinderbox. And I can see why Israel would be nervous about the fact that Iran is not going to turn over their nuclear material. The deadline is this Friday, and they're absolutely not going to turn over their material enriched beyond what's needed to make fuel rods for nuclear reactors. They have every intention to lie to us and build nuclear weapons. What do you think, Michael? Because I think people don't get this. They don't really, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's a straight, plain fact. In the regular media, Iran is lying.
Yeah, well, the United Nations has approved the Iranians operating 6,000 centrifuges to refine uranium and to enrich uranium, which can then be used for nuclear weapons. The President of the United States and John Kerry have already offered as part of a deal, which the deal may not come because the Iranians want even more. And the President will really have care if it comes, because he knows that the Iranians will get nuclear weapons even if there's no deal. And he's in favor of that, apparently. But Kerry and Obama have told the Iranians that they can take these centrifuges and bury them underground. And they can do the uranium enriching underground in bunkers that they already have. So there'd be no prying eyes. There would need to be no inspection. And if we had to decided that the Iranians were about to have a nuclear weapon that they were going to use against the United States, we would not be able to effectively bomb them, because these bunkers are impervious to the normal bombs being dropped. We would have to use a nuclear weapon, essentially, to wipe out a nuclear weapon, and that would start World War III. So Obama is playing fast and loose with the truth here. He's letting the Iranians get by with whatever they want, and like you say, the Middle East is already a tinderbox, and that's primarily due to the fact that there is no leadership of the United States. There hasn't been in the Middle East since Obama took over. The Saudis are attacking the terrorists and the people in Yemen that have taken over the government. The Saudis are attacking them, and Obama's all upset because they didn't have his permission, and he didn't have prior knowledge of it. Nobody is talking to us right now. I'm a former military intelligence officer. I can tell you right now that our intelligence has never been weaker. And the reason being is because we have no sources out there. We have very few people on the ground who are willing to talk to our intelligence people. We have other countries out there that will not talk and share their intelligence with us, because if they do, they know that Obama, if he sees some political benefit to himself or his ego, he will reveal that. It doesn't matter if he gets people killed. It doesn't matter if it helps a terrorist. He's done that in the past repeatedly. He got members of Navy SEAL Team 6 killed because he identified that they were the ones who had taken bin Laden. And you don't do that to your own people. But he's done it repeatedly, and he's done it to our friends. They just recently declassified documents regarding Israel's nuclear program. The Israelis were a big source of information for us about terrorist activities. They're no longer a source. Great Britain has pulled back. France has pulled back. Nobody wants to deal with this President of the United States because nobody trusts him anymore. And if they don't trust our president, they don't trust us.
Well, the problem is it's almost worse to be our ally than our enemy. And it's obvious with Obama's behavior that that's the case. You don't really want to be an ally of America because this president plays both sides and he doesn't play fair. As they say, if he was in a sandbox, the other kids would be saying, "Play fair, Obama. You're not playing fair." And he's double-crossing people. He's manipulating them. When Angela Merkel found out last year her cell phone was being tapped, I'm sure at that point she realized, America's not our ally. And then they realized other changes, other things, manipulation of the financial markets, etc., that are going on. America basically will do whatever it has to even create the dialectic of chaos just to bring about destruction, which is why they're trying to collapse Russia. Your ruble's fallen like a rock. Russia's now got its weapons on standby. And by the way, we cannot defend against a Russian attack, a nuclear attack. We can't. It means if they start a war, we're finished. America will cease to exist, and all the people in it will be dead.
Yeah, well, Obama's been dismantling our nuclear capabilities ever since he took office. And he's been doing it without a treaty with Russia or anybody else to get them to disband their nuclear weapon systems. He's been doing it on his own unilaterally. Most of our nuclear weapons are outdated at this point to begin with. Nuclear weapons, bombs, don't last forever. And they eventually deteriorate to the point where they're useless. And most of ours have now been allowed to deteriorate to that point. Obama, if you'll recall, a couple of years ago, got rid, through various methods, got rid of all the commanders and most of the high-ranking officers that handle our nuclear weapons facilities. And we don't know who's in there now, but they're friends of Obama's, they're supporters of Obama's. We don't even know if we're attacked, if we're going to have people in there that will pull the trigger to fight back. That's how bad it's gotten.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, isn't it? Yeah, it's a... to be honest with you, we have a policy called PDD-60, by the way, that Bill Clinton put in place. That means that even after a first strike, and the first person who told me this was Colonel Lynn Wells of the U.S. Radar Command at NORAD, who's a friend of mine back in the mid-'90s, that Bill Clinton put in policy just a few years previous to that, a policy that if 100 million Americans died in the first strike, we wouldn't necessarily do an automatic launch on command from NORAD. That's crazy. It means that you tell your enemies, don't worry, we won't reattack if you kill half of us. Right. That's a surrender. That's a kind of a de facto surrender in advance even of a war.
Well, let's face it, the left in this country has been wanting to surrender to communism for years.
Right.
And Russia may not be communist at this point, but Russia still is becoming an enemy of ours, and we have...
there's no need for it either. Russia does not need to be a natural enemy of America anymore. It's a totally different ballgame now. But the communists in America, actually, I think we're trading places. We are becoming like the communists after the Bolshevik Revolution, and the Russians are becoming religious and starting to develop market capitalism and starting to come out of the mess, and we're going into it. That's how crazy it is.
Exactly.
Remarkable. Thank you, Michael Connolly. Again, the website is usjf.net, and of course, Michael's blog, which you can get off usjf.net. We'll have to have you back on soon with an update on our veterans, what's going on with the impeachment of the abominator, the destroyer of our Constitution. What's going on in the Middle East is blowing up already, and ISIS and much more. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Bill. Take care.
It's happening again. The feds are trying to ban your freedom to own body armor. In January, a newly introduced bill, H.R. 378, will take away your right to buy level 3 and higher body armor.